Hi there. So this video is going to be a little bit different ink swirl. As you can see, got my base paint of black with a few little spurts of white throughout. This is because I want my colors to pop a little differently than a typical ink swirl. Usually with my galaxies, I've done a lot of black inks. I'm not going to use any black inks this time. I'm going to do just a touch of this one, the medium magenta, plenty of purple, plenty of ultramarine, plenty of turquoise. I want this to be kind of a gender neutral because a lot of guys don't tend to like pinks and yellows and stuff on there, so I'm going to go a little more neutral. I got this. I typically use Pinata brand, but I found this at Michael's the other day, so we're going to see how this works out. I want to know if it's just as pigmented as the other. It seems to be on paper, but I'm not sure. And then I also found this. It's silver ink. It's not mixative. I've had the mixative before, and it kind of floats on top. I'm curious what this does, so we're going to throw just a couple drops on that, of that on here. Not very many because I don't want it overpowering. So I've got plenty of epoxy, too much epoxy mixed up. I don't want it dripping off of here, but I don't want it too rigid as well. So we're going to put it on here nice and thick. After we drop our inks, we're going to heat it up. I'm going to throw my mask on at that point and probably just do voiceover at that point. It's a little hard to understand when I have my mask on. There's a little bit of air bubble in here, but I'm not super worried about it. Lately, I've been using my torch to pop air bubbles. I'm thinking that's probably not a good idea with alcohol inks. I've heard that it leaves some super cool results behind, but I don't really care to burn down my she shed. I've seen those commercials. It's traumatic. Also, my phone is right above this cup. Maybe I don't feel like replacing my phone anytime soon as well. There are a couple of spots on here that my spray paint didn't get as dense as I would want. That's okay. It's not really going to be a big deal for what we're doing right now. So I've seen several cups with black bases for alcohol inks. They're beautiful. I've been wanting to try it for a while, and finally today I was like, I'm just going to base paint this black and do it. We'll see how it turns out. I know a lot of people say I use, well, not a lot of people, a handful of people have said I use too much epoxy. That almost doesn't exist in this particular design. You need plenty. Not pouring off, like I've got some right here on my paper. But it needs to be thick enough that you get movement. You're not going to get the design and the swirls and all of that that you need if you don't. There's one tutorial I have that is how to make alcohol inks pop, and that's basically just using a bunch of white with your colors. That's actually been a pretty good video. I did it on a black multicolored glitter base. It was really pretty. That one has a lot of good, a lot of views on there. All right. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, all this brown you might see on my fingers, I just did a wood grain without gloves on. Not really smart considering I have to work tomorrow. So, let's start with purple. I'm using all the same brand. Not really for any specific reason. You can use any brand you want. Oops, that kind of... The only thing I don't like about this brand is how much it comes out. It like double drips a lot. Make sure you do the bottom as well. Just kind of let it fall over the side right there. I just got it on my counter, but that's okay. It cleans up really easily with either acetone or alcohol. All right, so now I've got ultramarine. So having those white spots on the base just kind of, I'm making a mess. That got on my counter too. Having those white spots there just kind of gives it a little bit different background. You can kind of see it when it comes around that it just looks like it's a little bit different color. And then we're going to add some white to all this in a little bit. Golly, that comes out so fast. All right, so now for turquoise. If you want your drops to kind of make one big circle, drop them on top. If you want them to kind of make a line, drop it kind of as it's spinning away from you or towards you. I would recommend away because otherwise it could end up getting on your clothes. I kind of neglected the bottom earlier, but I think I've got enough color on there. All right, and now I can see a few spots that I've missed. I'm just going to throw some pink on there, and then we're going to throw on the white and see what happens. Try not to touch the tip to your cup because then you might end up epoxying your lid on and you might not be able to get it back off of there. All right, that's all the pink I want. That was probably 10 spots maybe. Moment of truth. Let's see what this white looks like. I'd say that's pretty pigmented. So what I'm doing here, that's pretty how it's kind of blending. I'm just kind of doing it all over. Typically on a galaxy swirl, you wouldn't use a ton of white, but I kind of want to on this one. So what we're going to do is take this off of the turner. And we're going to, actually I'm going to give it some heat first. And then we're going to take it off of the turner. And we're going to go vertical movement. And for that, I'm actually going to raise this up just a little bit so you can see that a little bit better. So I'm going to put my mask on. You won't hear me really talking. But basically I'm going to heat this up and then give it up and down movement. You'll see what I mean as soon as I do it. There we go. You don't want to heat it up so much that you scorch your epoxy either. Make sure when you set that down, you do not put it on anything that you can melt. I've learned that lesson a couple of times. I saw a post in a group today that a woman was checking to see if her heat gun was hot before picking it up, and she forgot that she had her butane torch in her hand and burned the crazy out of her hand. So I'm just letting this slide down. Gravity is doing its thing. Just up and down. You can kind of see that right there. If you hold it in one space too long, it'll pool. I mean, it makes a cool design, but then it kind of messes up the rest of the concept there. I'm gonna heat this up a little bit more. Sorry if it's loud. I was holding my heat gun probably about 4 or 5 inches away. I just kind of see that finally making its way that way. There's another method called the Alisha Method. Alisha Method. Ooh, look how pretty that is. That's really pretty. And the way she does hers, she was the first person I for sure saw do it. She will get it nice and juicy and put her inks on here and drop the white from here and from here and let it make a vertical line this way. It's really pretty. I thought I did pretty good at not touching this without gloves on, but I have a dry spot right there that and right there. I have a sneaky suspicion that it's from oils from my fingers. Got another dry spot right there. Okay, so this isn't going to be nearly as masculine as I was expecting it to be, but it's going to be pretty nice looking. See that right there? Pretty good. Got plenty of movement up here on the top. I definitely don't want to heat it anymore. You're literally just manipulating it to spread and swirl with this up and down movement. Another suggestion, make sure you're working over a surface. Right here I dripped. That's a pretty good example as to why. But sometimes when I'm doing this, if I'm not paying super close attention, it totally just falls right off the cup. Which, I mean, it pops off the countertop pretty good, but if you're working on an area or a surface that can't really be popped off with a blade or spatula, you may want to be extra cautious. Yeah, alright, so that's all I'm going to do to this. Literally going to set my timer and let it turn for about 5 hours. Just because it doesn't really need any more than that. It really only needs to turn long enough for the epoxy to set enough to not fall off or drip off. So that's all I'm going to do to that. I'm really happy with how that turned out. It's not really what I was going for, but I like it a lot. It's going to continue to move. It's going to look completely different in the morning. And I'm pretty excited to see what that looks like. So here is our final result. Got some great swirling going on. Little cell breakup, I think is what they call that right there. Like a lattice or a lace effect. So you'll notice I did not use the silver like I was intending. I failed to mention it when I was doing the first part of this video. I just felt like it was pretty as it was, and I didn't want to throw this other element in there unnecessarily. I'll try it on another cup someday. So to recap, we used a fair amount of purple, a fair amount of ultramarine blue, a little bit of turquoise, a little bit of medium magenta, and a good bit of the white. I do feel like this white, the white of this brand, gives me just as much pigment as the white of this brand. I can get this at Michael's as a single, where this one I've only seen in the 2-packs, but I think they exist in a bigger bottle and in a single. I just haven't stopped to look for them before. So that's that. This just needs a top coat. And here's what our bottom looks like. Little something, not too busy. A little bit of each color. And that's pretty good. I like it. So that's how you can use a black base and still get your alcohol inks. It really, really all relies on the white that you use. My spots of white that I put on there, you can't even tell. I mean, you can barely tell, and it actually gives it a little bit of dimension. It looks like it has a different layer underneath. Doing something else, you can see the little spots here and there. You can see a few spots where the black didn't quite cover good, and so it has almost like a metallic shine through. Looks pretty cool. I'm happy with it, but right there is a good example. So yeah, if you like my videos, please consider subscribing and turning on your notifications. If you have any comments, I'll be glad to try and answer questions. Thumbs up helps me out a lot. And that's it. You have a good one.